Hey guys, if you like this video, please subscribe and hit the like button. So Thursday night, over 100 Christian leaders coming out of the Republican National Convention, many of them spoke there, were attacked by a mob, physically and verbally. They said they were shouting blasphemies like F God, F Jesus. They were kicking them, pushing them. If it wasn't for the D.C. police, there would have been a lot of injuries. And the mob didn't discriminate. These were evangelical Christians, mainline Protestant Christians, and Catholic Christians, all leaders in their respective faith traditions. And they were white, black, and Latinos, the leaders. The protesters were mostly young, white, privileged people. Go figure. But before I get into what happened with the Christian leaders, because I believe there's a spiritual element we're gonna talk about, I want to back it up. The first people that were attacked were Senator Rand Paul and his wife. And Rand Paul was pretty shaken up on an interview right after it. And he said if it wasn't for the D.C. police, there was no doubt that they would have been assaulted. They actually knocked down one of the cops he helped up, and that cop saved him from getting punched in the face. And Rand Paul said, ironically, they were shouting to him, say her name, say her name, say Breonna Taylor. And they were referring to this African-American woman, Breonna Taylor, who her house was raided by mistake. It was a no-knock raid, and her husband pulled out a gun to protect themselves. It was the middle of the night. They didn't know who was coming in, and the officers shot her and killed her. What's ironic about this is Rand Paul wrote a bill to stop no-knock raids in response to that, called the Breonna Taylor bill. So if anyone knew who Breonna Taylor was, it would be Rand Paul. And then they started yelling, "You need this. We need justice reform, criminal reform." And again, Rand Paul is one of the biggest advocates in Washington. He's written 22 criminal reform bills. And in fact, he was instrumental in the criminal justice reform bill that President Trump recently signed that fixed the crime bill of 94 that Joe Biden put into effect that discriminated against and caused mass incarceration in the black community. That crime bill put you away for life if you had crack cocaine. But if you had powder cocaine, it was just like a misdemeanor or something. Knowing that mostly crack cocaine was in the African-American community. So obviously, you know, doing the same drug but in a different form, you're going to jail for life. That was a Joe Biden bill that he sponsored and bragged about. And that was a bill signed by Democrat President Bill Clinton. And ironically, Donald Trump fixed that. So these people were so ignorant of who they were attacking. Just like when they tear down statues of Saint Sarah, who was a friend to the indigenous people, and they're tearing it down because they thought that Saint Sarah mistreated the indigenous people. So in Rand Paul's frustration, he called them idiots. Now, I would warn against any Christians calling anybody idiots. Matthew 5:22, Jesus said, warned us that you're in danger of hell if you call someone an idiot. A lot of the translations uses the Aramaic word raka, R-A-C-C-A. But I wouldn't call anybody idiots, but I could understand where he was coming from, because during the Cold War, the communists had this term they used. Some people attribute it to Vladimir Lenin. Some people say, no, he was a different communist leader that started. Whatever it was a communist term called useful idiots. And they called young people throughout the world useful idiots because they would infiltrate, the communists would infiltrate colleges and universities with Marxists and and socialist professors, and they would convince the young people to riot and protest, but the young people thought they were rioting and protesting for racial justice and for equality, when in fact they were bringing about the exact opposite. And the first people that would get killed, lined up and shot, were the useful idiots. And then once they were out of the way, they enslaved everybody else. And you see that in communist countries all over the world. Cuba, Venezuela, the former Soviet Union. So these people were acting like the definition of a useful idiot. They're attacking the exact people that are trying to make change, but they don't know because they're fed so much propaganda. And ironically, they were waving the Black Lives Matter flag, wearing Black Lives Matter shirt, and as usual, they were mostly white privileged kids from colleges, just like the 60 radicals, the white privileged. And again, it goes back to the 60 radical Saul Alinsky, rules for radical. Call your opponent what you are. These people are racist bigots attacking Christians and people that are fighting for racial justice, and they're calling them racial bigots. So the Democrat Party all week were telling their supporters to go outside and protest outside the Republican National Convention. And you say, well, they probably didn't want them to do that violent. They just wanted the peaceful protest. Well, you could Google Maxine Waters in 2018 telling Democrats, when you see Republicans in the street, you shout them out. You make them feel uncomfortable, they run. You see them eating in a restaurant, you go in there, you shout in their face so they get up and they leave that restaurant. You find out where they live, and you go to their house and you shout out there and make them uncomfortable where they can't even sleep. That's been 2018. And many, many Democrat leaders in Congress, positions of power, have irresponsibly told their followers to go out, shout in people's face, get in people's face, and get violent if necessary. So this isn't just a peaceful protest taken over by some radicals. These are radicals driving these protests. And peaceful protesters are all going there trying to take it over, but they're having no luck. So why did they attack all these Christians? You can see why they attacked Rand Paul, because they didn't know. He's a Republican, so they're convinced Republicans are racist. They didn't know that he's a social justice warrior, one of the most outspoken social justice warriors in the Senate. They just knew he was a Republican. Well, what about all these Christians? Black, white, and Latino Christian preachers and pastors and priests and nuns. Why did they attack them? Because at the root of Marxism is atheism. Saul Alinsky, the father of American Marxism, dedicated his book to Lucifer. So you can trace Marxism roots all the way back to Satan himself. And every country that becomes Marxist, the first thing they do is get rid of God, shut down the churches, get rid of freedom of religion, along with freedom of speech, like the Marxists are trying to do today in America. So why are they attacking all these? Another reason they're attacking these Christians that came out, because 4 days, and I've never seen anything like this, the 4 days of the Republican National Convention sounded like I was at church. Every speaker gave glory to God. They praised Jesus Christ by name. Every speaker talked about life, the unborn, pro-life. It was the most pro-life, pro-Jesus political event I've ever seen in history. Contrast that to the Democrat convention, where twice when they pledge allegiance, the speaker refused to say under God. Not every time, but twice. And contrast to 8 years earlier, when Obama was nominated for the Democrat candidate for president. They wanted to reach out to Christians. You know, the Obama administration knew that most Christians wouldn't vote for his pro-abortion agenda, so they wanted to soften the blow and try and pick off some evangelicals and some Catholics by putting in their platform that they acknowledge God's blessing on our country. Well, they had to put it up for a vote, and I watched it live, and in those conventions, it's yay or nay. And the nays were so loud, you knew it was a nay. And then the yay, I think I heard 1 or 2 yays. But like the Democrat Party always do, they're not very democratic. The superdelegates that were there, that run the party, decided, no, we got to have it in. So they said the yays won, which got the Democrats that were in the convention, like 20,000 of them, to stand on their feet and boo. For 15 minutes, I watched them boo God because they didn't want that in their platform. These, you know, the average Democrat I know believes in God, hardworking guy, but the leaders, the people that are running, the people that are making the policies, they are anti-God and anti-Christian. I'm telling you, there are Marxists that are running the Democrat Party today, and they're going to push their agenda. You can't vote based on personality. Oh, this guy seems like a nice guy. This guy seems like a douche. You got to vote on policy. Is this policy going to hurt freedom of religion? Is this policy going to hurt the unborn? The Democrat platform today is the most anti-Christian, anti-life platform of any party ever in the history of America. And the Republican platform is the exact opposite. This is what got these activists so mad that they were blaspheming God and trying to assault all these preachers and priests that came out of the Republican National Convention. So remember, faith without works is dead. So we have to stand up. This is why I'm making this video. We have to be counted. We have to be heard. We have to vote. But at the end of the day, this is a spiritual battle. And we need to pray. We need to pray for our nation and pray for our leaders that are willing to stand up for life and willing to stand up for the Christian faith. And I think a great example, I made 2 videos about Bishop Barron protecting our statues. Physically went out there, but peacefully prayed. And each time he went out with the other Christians that were praying around these statues, it just calmed everything down and statues weren't taken down. I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but that's a great example of faith and works working together, hand in glove. So, God bless, stay Catholic.